Welcome to the Clean Power Hour Live. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. I have too many URLs in my brain. Welcome to the show, John Weaver, commercial solar guy.
Timothy, a lot of links, a lot of things you're working on. So I'll give you some slack. I know you're busy, but be careful though.
Cleanpowerhour.com. That is the main website, but I also have cleanpower.group. Um, and you can find all the content in both of those websites. But anyway, give us a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and help us grow the energy transition. Speaking of the energy transition, according to this story that we're going to talk about here, global solar demand staggering, on track to grow 30%. Um, and it is heady days in the clean energy industry for a variety of reasons, which we will be talking about today, including the legislation that is working its way through Washington, uh, known as the Inflation Reduction Act, which is so geeky and I just can't get excited about that, but it is important.
Yes, very important, Timothy. Very, very important. uh, yeah, in fact, on our list of articles here, I have like three or four IRA articles, projections of volume for the U.S. and politics surrounding it. And then on the federal level, or global level, we have two articles, both from Bloomberg, talking about exploding capacity this year. And you're right, it's heady days. You got to figure out how to hold your head together and just focus. And so, I always like seeing Bloomberg when they put out numbers because they're such a respected party and they're looking hardcore at a financial aspect of the industry. They want to give good stock tips and investment tips to their people.
Yeah.
And it's cool when somebody who's conservative and adult like has to say projections and they're big. And 250 gigs of potential new solar, that's a big number, and it makes me happy to see it coming from Bloomberg. Their number this year started off at like 210, 215, and now they're up to 250. And that's not even their optimistic number. That's kind of their middle-ish of the road number. It's probably in the 240 to 250 range. But that's a huge number. I mean, we're coming from like 185 all the way to 250. And, just big. I mean, it's just so much capacity being deployed globally. And it's being heavily driven by China, who might install 100 gigs of solar themselves this year. So that's cool. Mhm.
The other colored lines in this chart though? Oh, I see. They're you have to roll over them. So there's Europe, there's China, big dog in the room,
Yep.
306 gigawatts. Europe, 191 gigawatts. United States approaching 100 gigawatts at 94 gigawatts. Then Japan, then India, and then Brazil. So, um, yeah, what I think is interesting, John, too, is that China is installing three times as much solar as we are here in the United States. Now, granted, they're a bigger population, um, so maybe from a scale to population, but I just think I consider that a national security issue, right? That the I mean, they're really the only world power that can hold a candle to the United States. And if they're getting their grid power from free sunlight and we're not, then that gives them an advantage. So um, I hope Washington D.C. is listening. And apparently, some good things are happening in D.C. I don't know if you want to go to that story. Do you have anything else to say about this
Yeah.
Bloomberg?
Well, connected to the Bloomberg capacity link is the Bloomberg asset investment volume. And solar is up significantly in terms of total money spent, is their estimation, up 33%, which is very similar to 30. So you got to go to page 4 or 5 of this next document. But you can see the solar asset in the first half of the year, it's up 33% versus the first half of last year, and it broke $120 billion of money spent on our capacity. And it's interesting because 120 billion bucks, and if we're halfway through a 250 gig year, that means maybe we're at 125 gigs, which is absolutely astounding. We're halfway through the year at 125 gigs. I gotta say that out loud.
And
But
that's in light of, things having been slowed down here for a while with the tariff situation, right? That did slow things down in the United States, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the second quarter was the lowest quarter since maybe the beginning of 2001 or maybe 2020 even. So we actually had a very slow second quarter. We're probably going to have a slow third quarter on the utility scale. Residential and commercial, well, residential's growing as much as it can, but commercial's, middling along. But utility scale is going to take a little bit of a bump, it seems like, right now. It's hard to get modules for larger projects sometimes. There are challenges.
Yeah, so supply is not keeping up with demand in the solar module world, and we are completely dependent on the manufacture of solar modules in Southeast Asia because of that.
Mm-hmm.
70%, I think, of the solar modules that are installed in the United States are made overseas, and so that's another warning
So
flag.
most of this 120 billion, at least the hardware portions of it, is leaving the U.S. Margins for shipping and storing and financing and warehousing, all that kind of stuff, that stays. But racking stays. And then there's lots of other cool stuff here. So a renewable energy investment popped very big, great numbers. We could talk about everything. There's all kinds of good finance stuff here. But I like Bloomberg, of course. If I didn't write for PV Magazine, I'd try to hang out with Jenny Chase and all the cool people there because they have the coolest data. So, all right. So the IRA, which I keep for some reason associating it with wartime.
The Irish Republic Army.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
how could you not,
So,
right? Like in
yeah.
the 70s and 80s, that was news. That was in the news. Luckily, that conflict has died down. But I'll put this on screen. So you found a report called it's a report from the Zero Lab called
Yes.
REPEAT, Rapid Energy Policy Evaluation and Analysis Toolkit. It's a great acronym.
Yeah, totally.
I have to give it to Princeton University for that.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, you want to go to page 11 of this document. And
okay.
what this document does, and there's lots of other good info in it, but on this document, they give some projections on future solar, and then zoom in on that chart, and they'll check out the right side of it when you get there. But they give some, that chunk right over there. That's the fun. But this is a chart of all new electricity capacity installations historically. And then, of course, as we reach this area, this time in the, good button to click. Never mind. I didn't do much for you. As we start seeing, and you can move your mouse over there and zoom in there if you want. But there's a couple of years near the end of the decade which are greater than 100 gigs of solar capacity. And I think that's cool. First off, I'm right now we're heralding China approaching 100 gigs. And yeah, they are about 3 to 4 times bigger than us population, but they use a lot less electricity per person. So their number is bigger than our number when it comes to things.
That's a good point.
And if China's hitting 100 gigs and that's awesome, then us even sniffing at 100 gigs is awesome. And funnily enough, I did a projection that had numbers something sort of like this. When I wrote an article and Biden started saying 40% of electricity from solar by 2035. And it's just cool. Look at these capacities. I mean, if you zoom in on that, we're talking In 22 to 24, they're thinking 37 gigs a year. 25, 26, 49. 27, 28, 75 gigs. 29, 30. Well, 29 through 32. 4 straight years over 100 gigs of solar.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I mean, it's just awesome.
Yeah.
so, so it's
So,
just,
so let's
yeah.
just reiterate this because this chart is a little confusing, but just note that the yellow is solar,
Yes.
blue is onshore wind. So those are the big dogs in the room, so to speak. I mean, you see the decline of coal and gas, and over time, starting I mean, this goes back to 1950,
Yeah.
but here in the 2000s and in the new century, there was a lot of natural gas happening in the first part, in the first decade, right? And then that tapered, and it's there. Still, it's not going to go away, but solar is booming and wind is booming, and um, yeah, these numbers are really big. We're more than doubling our year over year, right?
Tripling. Tripling. I mean, if we do 30, which we haven't yet done, we haven't hit 30 gigs of solar capacity yet.
We've hit
Which,
20, right?
yeah, no, we definitely got into the mid 20s, I think, in 21. I think in 20 and 21, we got to like 27, maybe 25. And this year, who knows? We might be 20, 23. But,
Yeah.
let's just say 25 is our number right now. Well, we're going to be doubling it by the middle of the year and then blowing by it 4x by the end of the decade. And that would just be, oh, just awesome. And here you go. We're talking by 2028, we're talking $200 billion being spent in solar. Tim, we need to make sure we hold on to our jobs. There's hundreds of billions of dollars coming into our job in our company. Hold on to the job, buddy. Just hold the line. Hold the line. Get your little piece. I'll get my little piece and pay some bills. Billions, dude. Hundreds of billions.
Yeah, this is a very happy story for clean energy and hopefully for humanity, John, because it
Well,
is
yeah.
all hands on deck. We have to remember that. We're actually very late to the party in terms of turning the ship around. Global greenhouse gas emissions are still rising. Here in 2022, still rising. So we have our work cut out for us, but we do have we have good job insurance, and I mean, whether there's an Inflation Reduction Act or not, John, there's going to be a good clean energy industry. This is just going to make it uh, really stepping on the accelerator, right?
I really hope this thing passes, Tim. I hope they fix what's going on with the lady in Arizona. I hope Bernie's okay with it.
Miss Cinema,
Yes, yeah. We need to go put up some picket signs outside of our office and say,
yeah,
"Hey, come on, give us a shot. Let us build."
yeah. I try not to pay too much attention to her because she's such a nut job, but um,
I mean, here, you know what? Let's go to the next link because it perfectly aligns with us talking about a politician. Check out the link. Scroll down to like the second-ish table. It might be the first table, and then let's zoom
okay.
in on
So the
that.
story is from a website called Data for Progress,
Hmm.
and the title is "Voters Support the Inflation Reduction Act," which I'm not surprised to hear. Um, but what did these guys find? Data for Progress.
That 73% of Americans support the document by like a 51% margin. And that's borderline apple pie type support. I think apple pie polls at like 88%. So no, it's not apple pie, but it's
Yeah.
pretty dang close. And so all
73 support and 22 oppose. This is the Inflation Reduction Act. This is potentially $369 billion for clean energy. And so it has a 51% advantage. Um, and that's across all voters, right?
even Republicans are over 50%.
Yeah. 52% of Republicans support, 42% oppose. And
All we got to do is one lady in Arizona and one gentleman in uh, Vermont right now. It seems to be. Even AOC
well, you're
talked it
talking
up.
about Bernie?
Yes, sir. He's a little annoyed at, and he should be. He should always be. We need him annoyed, but he's annoyed at the handouts for the fossils that are in the document. But I think that's just the trade-off we had to do,
Yeah.
and it's life.
Sorry, Bernie. We got to do this. Yeah. Of course, there's handouts for the fossil industries, right? That's the only way that Manchin was going to get on board.
I think we had to. I think that's really what it is. And I'm okay with that. In 2015, we traded the extension of the ITC partially to allow for oil exports. In Obama times, we also allowed for natural gas exports. And I know this sounds bad. The American consumer now pays a higher price because of those events. However, in my opinion, we've been underpaying the price of energy. And
Yeah.
and because of that, we waste it and we're hurting ourselves. And because we've chosen to act irresponsible with this tool, now it's like, all right, we're going to make you little kids have to pay real bills. And so I feel bad when I hear about people dealing with paying bills, but this is a tough love moment of get over it, be more efficient, be like California, lower your bills by being efficient, and you're killing yourself by doing this, and I don't care. I know your bills are higher, but I don't care anymore. So push up the electricity pricing, export some fossils, make some trades, get things done. Let's build some capacity. That's what we have to do. We have to clean our grid. It's our job.
I interviewed a entrepreneur yesterday, and this interview is going to come out in maybe 6 weeks. So it'll be a little while. But gentleman by the name of Daniel Howard, he's a environmental engineer, and he's got a cool platform called Quantum EC, where he does a life cycle analysis of the health and environmental benefits of energy projects. And the point he made was that 8 million people approximately die every year. 350,000 Americans die every year from air pollution from burning fossil fuels in internal combustion engines, so in transportation, and then burning fossil fuels for energy, right? Oil and coal and natural gas for the grid and for industrial processes. 350,000 Americans per year. We are completely in denial of the health impacts of riding that rocket ship called fossil fuels. It was a wonderful rocket ship, but now we have the technology to replace that rocket with photons, PV and wind and energy storage, and we have to do that. And when you start to take in those full life cycle, right, every clean energy project gets way more valuable. And killing people is a crime in most normal senses, right? And yet we do this with our built environment. We kill people. We are murdering 8 million people on Earth every year, and we're just so in denial about that. It's like a Holocaust happening every year. That's a lot, right? That's a lot of pain and suffering. And now we have the technology. So why would we not? And by converting to the new technology, right? By making the transition, we're going to grow the economy and we're going to stabilize the future, right? We're going to prevent having to constantly be scrambling like ants in a sidewalk. Uh, Man, what should we talk about next?
I was just thinking about the ants on a sidewalk line. It's a interesting one.
Humans are like
It's
ants, John. The hurricane
yeah.
comes and floods the city, and what do? We just build back, right? Um, and we're just little automatons. Oh, you got a story about Fraunhofer? I love Fraunhofer.
Well, pictures. It's my
Oh,
installation
some solar
of the week.
glass.
Yes, sir. Yes. Just some cool images. This is a new person who I follow on Twitter, Dr. Borchet, and she does perovskites, but she just started a new research chunk at Fraunhofer. She got a job, and so she was taking pictures at the site. And this is one office she was waiting in, and those are PV. Those are PV panels that they're experimenting.
Yeah.
And if you look at the next two images in the tweet stream, she has a couple of other cool installation images.
Okay.
And yeah, like so roof with PV, and I like it. I know that our building volume, our the volumes of buildings moves a lot slower, and so
Yeah.
buildings last hundreds of years. So we can't just unless you're in Japan, they tear everything down, every house down every 30 years, but in Europe, or you got 100-year-old buildings, 200-year-old buildings. We can't expect these buildings to just quickly redo themselves and all integrate building integrated PV.
Is
But
that
every
really a
single one,
tradition in Japan to replace the buildings every 30 years?
houses,
Oh, why,
yeah,
why do they do that?
I don't know. And I'm sure there's many versions of houses that don't get torn down every 30 years, because like temples
Yeah.
are there for 1,000 years
Right.
because they just have long history. But
Yeah, that is a very cool thing about Japan is they also have very, very old buildings.
Japan houses torn down 30 years.
Yeah, so for our American listeners, Fraunhofer is a it's kind of an NREL type organization. It's not identical, but they do research, bleeding edge research on energy and the environment and the built environment. And then they also do don't they do like certification like UL?
Yeah, no, they do testing, not like UL, because that would be somebody else. That'd be TUV Reinhold or something like that. But
Hmm.
what they do is similar to testing solar cells for super high efficiency, similar to NREL. They do
Yeah,
lots of research. They don't do module certification, but they definitely do some types of testing. But they're a large firm, large research organization, government that does lots of research, and it's them and NREL who are my two favorite, government-funded research groups, because they just put out so much cool research, documents, new knowledge all the time. Makes me, I don't know, I get a little excited.
yeah, Fraunhofer, good thing. We
Yep, yep.
we want more Fraunhofers in the world. Um, all right, you've done it again. You've found an obtuse posting on LinkedIn
I love these.
with some
You got to
information
zoom in on this one. You got to zoom in on this one for all of us, Tim.
with some information about what goes into lithium-ion batteries. Is that the deal here?
Yeah, this is a solar lithium-ion cell, and it breaks down the components and the cost and what a cell costs, and how it all scales, and it's just neat to look at. You got cathode foils, cathode carbon, cathode binder, anode foils, and I bet you each of these components have massive subcomponent lists. But it's just kind of cool, and you can see that the most expensive part per weight is cathode binder at 120 bucks a kilogram. We got silicon at 100 bucks, some weird silicon, because normal silicon's like 30, 35, or at least polysilicon for solar. Um, and then you can see the actual highest cost out of the unit. It's the cathode active material, which
Hmm.
that's the nickel, the magnesium, and the cobalt, and that's of the $6.17 for this unit. It's $3.93. So that's 63% of the item cost.
Yeah,
Is that? Oh, there you go, got it up, and
yeah,
it was just neat to see that little breakdown. I'm sure again that this list probably expands 10x, because the cathode active material is probably made up of more than just those three. There's probably a whole list of components that make that possible. But just cool. And then if you go down to the bottom, they break it down on a price per kilowatt hour. You can see in the lower right, $62 of a cost per kilowatt hour. And, you know, if these people are going to say double their money on this, double their investment, that's 120. If they're up 30, 40%, maybe, you know, 70 or 80, 90. If they're up 10%, 70, 75. It's kind of cool. It's kind of neat to see these numbers break it down like this.
Yeah. So when it says $62 per kilowatt hour, though,
Mm-hmm.
that's not an installed cost. This is like a
No.
manufactured cost, right?
Well, this is only the cell, too. This
Uh-huh.
isn't even the pack. This isn't the gear to manage the system. This is literally just a cell that's 2 inches tall and, you know, a quarter of an inch wide, whatever it is. 21 170, you know, 21 millimeters, 1,000 millimeters, whatever the sizing is, 100 and something. But yeah, this is just a cell. This is like a battery that you walk into the supermarket and you see it. It's that. It's one of those.
Yeah.
So just a neat little breakdown. I really like seeing these sub-sciences that are in the big science. Like you see, oh, you do solar power. It's like, well, no, actually, I'm a solar developer in the community solar industry, specifically in upstate New York. And it's like, you know, there's sciences within the sciences. And, you know, it both scares me and excites me when I meet people who are PhDs in a field that I didn't even know existed. Because it reminds me of, one, I don't know crap. There's so much knowledge in this world that we create, and I don't know anything about anything. And so, goodness, look at these. There's people, there's whole communities of PhDs, whole science departments. I didn't even know their science existed. And it's like, what else don't I know? And tons of it. But on the other side, I'm excited just because, holy crap, that's cool. I discovered new science. So, you know. I discovered people who discover new science. So how's that?
So let's talk about SMRs.
Do you think they're actually going to get built, Tim? This is
I'm
a question we were talking about.
Very skeptical. So small modular reactors. We're talking about the nuclear industry, and you found a
One just got approved to move forward. So I'll just give real high level on the article. The National, the Nuclear Reliability Commission, or the
Nuclear
NRC.
Regulatory Commission.
Thank you. They approved or gave us a certification for NuScale to move forward with their unit.
Yeah.
And so this is an SMR that I think is in the 250 to 300 megawatts range. And it's the one that gets all the headlines. And they had a really snazzy image that they put out. And looks like a little triangle, like a spaceship that's about to lift off. But they got the approval to move forward. And that's cool, man. And that's a step. Now the question is, are they ever going to build the thing? So here are those. These are 50 megawatt units, and they're hoping to have at least 12 done. And what's interesting in the document, they submitted their initial application December 31st in 2016. And it's like, geez, these nuclear people got to do some work to make things happen.
Yeah, here we are 6 years later.
And it's just paperwork approved. That's it.
So here's the NuScale website. I'm not super familiar with NuScale. I have heard the name, of course, before, and I like their brand. They've created this brand, New Voyager. It's got a good ring to it.
Hey, scroll down. Let's see if they have a picture. Come on, show me something. Yeah. They had this neat picture, and everybody liked to make a little fun and say they employ more picture people than they do actually nuclear people.
Well, we'll leave this on while we talk a little bit.
Yeah.
This is a video about their facility, and
This looks nothing like the cool pictures they've put online. These are just boring square boring square images, which I guess is okay.
But at face value, I think we're talking about a site that's maybe 100 acres for 350 megawatts, something like that. Okay, 77 megawatts.
77. Yeah, so it's a lot
Um,
less than 100 acres. No, that's more of a 5 acre site, 10 acre site,
I don't
I would
know.
guess.
I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see how it comes. I mean, their goal is to be able to deploy. Oh, that's starting to look like the cool building that they had in
That looks
their
like
marketing.
Disneyland.
They're trying.
Make it
They're
look
tr-
like Disneyland, and people will want it. Uh, yeah. So, what is different? I guess let's try to tease this apart for our listeners. What is different about SMRs compared to traditional
oh, there it is. You can
nuclear?
pause it. This is the pretty thing they were putting online and showing off and saying, "Oh, here's our facility." So this is when you
Yeah.
find some press online, this is going to be their pretty facility. But you saw the other image, which was a bunch of squares. So maybe it won't be as pretty as this is. But that's definitely not 100 acres. I bet you that's less than 20. I mean,
But
if you look at the size of the
this is
parking lots,
this is how many of those 77 megawatt units?
I think it's one, but I don't know anything.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, really. I mean, the goal is to distribute 77 megawatt power plants all over. So yeah, let her back. Let it. Ooh, there we go again. Oh, that was a good spot where you just had. We'll, we'll see. It had a picture of three different sizes. It's a little further ahead. Yeah, so here it comes. So the main goal of an SMR is that you can build smaller units that are rolled off of a production line, much like a solar panel. And
Hmm.
so instead of having to build a unique power plant that has to get redesigned and redone and re this and re that every single time,
Yeah.
you can have a factory. And in that factory, you can have people just building units. And you have some engineers, you have some humans, and they're poking and twisting, and they know their screw turn really well. And when they're done building, they go to the next unit. And so the hope is that we can get the cost per megawatt down to whatever number it has to be and have this resource just running, running, running. Because that's the beauty of nuclear. It just runs. If you do it right, well, it seems like in France they're having issues cooling reactors because of the heat wave and low water levels and the such. But nuclear just runs when it's hot, when it's cold, mostly when it's hot, but definitely when it's cold. And so hopefully somebody can make a power plant that they can just roll off of a manufacturing line. And that's what the pitch is for SMRs. Smaller units, more easily manageable, able to scale.
Yeah. And theoretically safer. I don't understand exactly how they're safer. You know, Obviously we've had some problems. We had 3 Mile Island here in the U.S. in the 70s. That was in 79, I believe. Then we had Chernobyl in the 80s, in 1986. I went to Norway in 1986. They had to cull all the sheep because they were eating radioactive grass from Chernobyl, and um,
Jesus.
the sheep and the reindeer had to be culled. And and all of us Americans, I was part of a group of about 20 Americans studying in Oslo that year, and we were very skeptical of the reindeer that they were trying to feed us at the dormitory there. But anyway, Chernobyl was a near miss. It could have been 1,000 times worse than it was, and it really wasn't that big a deal in the greater scheme of things. It was bad for the people living in Chernobyl, um, which is now a no-go zone. Um, you cannot live there. It's still too radioactive. But and then we had Fukushima in 2011 or 2012, um, and where a tsunami knocked out the uh, ability for the power plant to cool itself, and it overheated and and then exploded. And so so there's that, right? There's the operations of the plants, and then there's what are we doing with the waste, because there is waste, and you have to put it somewhere that it won't leak into the environment for 10,000 years at least, right? A very long time. So that is a technical challenge that we will solve eventually, but people don't like to have this stuff in their backyard.
Yep.
And what we're doing in many cases is storing it on site at these nuclear facilities. We have 12 operating nuclear plants in Illinois. We're the most nuclearized state in the union, and they put it in barrels, and then they put it in pools of water sometimes, or they uh, embed it in concrete blocks. But we just we're really struggling to find long-term storage facilities, and then getting agreements to transport the stuff there, right? Like it's very complicated dealing with this waste. And there's a nice photo of the reactor. So what do you think, John? Is our SMRs going to take off?
I think eventually we're going to get awesome at them. Because we're going to get awesome at all technology, and we're going to take over the universe. Because you know, we're gonna.
I definitely want an SMR on Mars. If I was a Martian, I would be down with having some SMRs there because uh, it would just be easier to power up your nascent colony
Hmm.
with an SMR compared to a big solar farm. It's a both and. They will build solar farms, I think, on Mars as well. But I think for density, for energy density, right? Plutonium and uranium are super good things. I don't know if
Yeah,
there's any of that there. We would probably have to bring it there, but
I mean, technically, we are awesome at doing SMRs on Earth. It's just that they're very expensive in our current format in the form of submarines and aircraft carriers. And we build amazing SMRs. That's what these units are. And they don't blow up. We're good at it. You got to have major attention, and the commercial world has its issues with it. And the military doesn't have to deal with things like throwing away material. They can just be like, nah, we're the material. We're the rules. We make the rules. And so they don't have the same challenges as the populace with managing stuff. But I think I do believe we're gonna build them. I think we're gonna get good at them. We're gonna deploy, and I don't know though if we're gonna get them done in a time frame that aligns with our current projections of where we have to be to minimize our carbon emissions. And if
right.
we're gonna make ourselves dependent in the next 10 years, 15 years on SMRs to beat climate change, I'm not willing to make that bet. I'm not willing to say, you know what, let's shift massive volumes of funding there for this because we have other things we trust right now and we're building it. And unless we were to see massive political shifts in opinion, I'm not willing to make the bet because I don't know if we can move it forward. If we had 97% of the population and 97% of the politicians saying, yeah, this is going to happen, I'd be I'd be a little more hot to trot. I'd be like, you know what? Let me help. Let me give my assistance because I think it's viable and real. That's part of the reason I switched to solar. I said, we've crossed a precipice politically speaking with solar. We believe, we trust, and so now it's just going to come. And we're there with solar. We're there with wind. We're getting there with EVs and batteries. We're not there with nuclear. I mean, a lot of people love nuclear. A lot of people love nuclear,
Well, it's
annoyingly
it's
so.
interesting that it's interesting that there there are people in rural America who think solar panels are toxic and are going to
Yeah.
poison the land,
Yep.
and um, that's just not true. um, so there are myths that need to be busted. Um, Nuclear, on the other hand, is clearly dangerous stuff. Is it viable? Yeah, it's viable. We just have to be very careful about the waste product, and I don't know if NuScale has solved that problem. I'm down with building SMRs as long as we have a good safe place to put the waste because there will be waste still. You can't have nuclear power that doesn't have spent nuclear fuel rods. Um, this still uses fuel rods. That was clear in the drawings from NuScale here, right?
Yeah, something. But don't we have like fast breeder technology, which literally burns old nuclear waste? I don't know if NuScale is based on that. And then as it burns it, it turns it into a lesser challenging material. And also, I'll say that I've done plenty. I've not done plenty. I've done a decent amount of reading on this storage issue, and it feels like the storage issue is more of a political issue than it is a technical issue. Um,
Well,
I've seen the volumes of material that are built up over time, and the volumes are not large. I mean, we're talking 40-gallon drums and a few football fields worth, and it's not big volume. It's that we're scared of the volume because if we screw up with it, the consequences are big. And so I don't know. Human beings are very imperfect. I think because of screw ups with nuclear, because of Fukushima, because of 3 Mile, because of Chernobyl, and these were all human events. It's not like Fukushima. The seawall wasn't built, and somebody didn't do proper process. Chernobyl, terrible design, was messed up during a training test. 3 Mile Island, human error, and it almost was massively terrible if not for some technician saying, hey, this very non-intuitive switch, I'm just going to randomly throw it. And he ended up being right. And like I read this long book on 3 Mile and how close it came to being a massive event from one dude finding one switch. And these are all human issues, and I guess they're not going to go away ever because this planet's populated by humans. Um, but I don't know. It seems like we can manage the nuclear waste issue if it wasn't for the politics surrounding it. And it's disappointing, but here we are. This is our
well,
reality.
here is a website about the waste isolation pilot plant, which is
New
otherwise
Mexico,
known
right?
as WIP. Okay. And my father and mother were fighting WIP. WIP is located in southern New Mexico.
Yeah.
In
This just happened, right? I remember this.
This was in February 2014. No, so it's a
Yeah,
while ago.
it's
But
close enough though.
there was a salt truck that caught fire, and then um, there was radioactivity that got into the air, and so they had to evacuate. And this gives you a nice drawing. So this is an underground facility. I don't know what the depth is, but it's several hundred feet below ground. So you can think of it as a underground vault, and uh, and then there's a facility on the surface as well. But and they're they're digging out salt and replacing it with nuclear waste.
Jesus.
And it all looks well and good. It's very high tech. There's all kinds of monitoring systems and ventilation systems. But the bottom line is that there was a serious safety hazard there. It caught fire, and it had to be evacuated. And so um, and then there's the bigger question of, is that geologic formation actually a stable formation for 10,000 years? And quite a few geologists came out and against that. So anyway, the other existing facility I think is Yucca Mountain in Nevada or
Nevada.
Utah,
Nevada,
Nevada.
I think. Yeah.
And I don't know what the status of Yucca Mountain is. Is it open? Are we taking waste at Yucca Mountain? I don't know.
Oh, I
Google.
believe so.
But anyway, I just yeah, we have to be careful, and we can't be cavalier. Um, we we have nuclear power. It's 20% of our grid nationally or something like that, right? It's
1920, yeah.
it's 80% in France. France went all in on nuclear, and they haven't had any major accidents, at least not that are in the news.
Yep.
Um, so it is doable.
It's doable. The question is, what's it going to cost at this stage? What's the politics? I mean, we know it's doable. We're
Right.
pretty
And
good at
what's the
building stuff.
cost of nuclear power? If you build a nuclear power plant today, and I don't know what NuScale is saying, but for big scale nuclear power plants, it's like 30 cents a kWh. and
It's
and
tough. Yep.
coal is 14 and solar is 4. Um, so solar is almost a tenth of the price, and that's why we're not building a bunch of nuclear power plants. And as Jigger Shaw will say, he's a huge fan of nuclear too,
Mm-hmm.
but he says we're just not good at that, at building that kind of infrastructure. We need to get better at that. I agree. We do need to get better at that, but we're not currently very good at that, right? There's major cost overruns with that have happened with those projects that are, well, we only have one now that's still living. There was one that started getting constructed and then they shut it down, right? And now there's still one in Georgia that's under construction, but the
And
cost
speaking of
overrun.
which, the first half of that Georgia unit got a big approval in the last day or two. I think it's allowed to start loading new fuel rods. So
Oh,
very big, very big. Vogel 3.
yeah,
So it's
Vogel.
1.25 gigawatts peak, 1.14 output, and that's good step. We like that. Fuel rods getting loaded.
Yeah.
All
So
right, you want to look at a pretty picture?
apparently bees like solar arrays.
I just, there's somebody who does O&M and she works on pollinator friendly facilities. And I guess this is one negative of a pollinator friendly solar facility is that it's really pollinator friendly. Yeah, that's so Lindsay White, she runs oh goodness, I can't remember her company name, but they're pollinator experts. She actually, her family DNA is via seed families. So they do grow a lot of seed growing and they also do a lot of land restoration. And with that, they're experts on putting down land material and making your site pollinator friendly and also making it pollinator friendly in a manner so that it cuts down on your O&M because they make it so that they choose strategic plants in certain places of your rack and on your ground so that things that are going to limit themselves to a foot tall are at the base of your panels, 3 feet tall behind the panels, and it's neat. So in general, if you need somebody to help you with pollinator friendly stuff, Lindsay White on the East Coast, and they have another firm they work with in the Midwest and I just always a fan, but I just wanted to share that picture because bees, be careful. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that photo. I like the pattern that the bees make in that hive. I don't know what that
Pollinator
material
friendly.
is that they're building the hive out of, but
Wasps, they make it out of paper and mud and leftover branch stuff, I
well,
guess.
that
I
was
don't
my
know.
other question. Although they do look like wasps. Is that what that is? Wasps?
I think so. I'm not enough of an insect expert. That looked very waspy though.
Yeah.
Uh,
So,
so
but nonetheless, they wasps are pollinators as well. Um,
actually, wasps. There's cool things that some insects do. Like I think there's a wasp, and it might be a fig, but they actually go into a fig and like die, or they lay their eggs there, and that's how they make things happen. And it's like, man, it's so interesting how we interact with each other and eat each other, and you know, all that kind of stuff. Very very entertaining.
yeah, there's a phenomenon called galls. And gall wasps, they plant their eggs in the leaves and stems of plants, and then the larvae excrete a chemical that makes the plant grow a abnormal structure, and you get these little spheres that are like bubbles, and they're basically little incubators for baby wasps,
Neat. All right.
and and they're cool. I fear wasps because when I was doing field work as a forest ecologist in northern Wisconsin, I stepped on a wasp
Oh,
nest and probably got stung about 20 times through my
ah,
jeans. They can bite you right through your jeans, and I think that's one of the most painful experiences I've ever had. So ever since then, I've been pretty gun shy about wasps.
and I bet you learned a lot about your ability to run really
I
fast.
I learned that I'm not as fast as the wasps.
I'm sorry for laughing at this. Uh, I'm sure it's. I hope it's years in advance in following up, and I hope the therapy sessions
Yeah,
weren't so terrible.
Well, let's talk about EVs.
So
We've got just a few minutes left here in the Clean Power Hour here, but U.S. electric car
super.
sales jumped to an impressive record high last quarter. We're going to see this quarter over quarter. It's just going to keep going, going, going. Right, the EV transition is happening. In 5 years, the ICE engine will be gone completely from parking, from new car lots, and you don't see it today. Right, we're at a few percent, but it's coming.
And so this is actually for Q1. So this is an old article, but it just so happened to have an image in it that I wanted to show off and then show some doubling numbers. So Q1 set a new record. Q2 is going to set a new record too. It's in the S curve period. And but if you scroll down this, I wanted to show off this. So the orange line is the one I wanted to do, and that's cumulative sales. And I wanted to talk about cumulative sales because I want to talk about doubling rates. And if we guesstimate that there's 276 million to 300 million cars in the United States on the road, then 1% or 1/100th of 1% is 30,000. We crossed 30,000 in 2015ish.
Hmm.
Now we're gaining on 1%. Crossing 1% takes 7 doublings. So you go from 0.1, 0.2,
Yeah.
4, 16, 32, 64. 64 is number 6, and then 1.2%, which would be gaining on 3 million. Look at this chart.
Yeah.
We're about to cross 7 doublings in 5 years, 6 years. That is what I wanted to show off. Our rate of growth here, our doubling rate is
And
of
once you've reached 1%, you just need 7 more doublings, and then you're
that's it.
you're at 100%.
And boom. And
So we
so
could
we're going
do
to
it
have
in
this
5 years.
I mean our friend Simon Moore would tell you, Timothy, he'd say, Tim, it's going to take 6 years to build the lithium mining facilities to make it happen. So we could do it, maybe, but we don't
Yeah.
have the infrastructure and the manufacturing facilities and the such yet. But the demand is there, and this early stage S curve shows that. And so I wanted to show off this chart because I wanted to talk about doubling rates, the fact that we've probably already crossed number 7 because this is a quarter old chart. But
Yeah.
you know, I just wanted to show that off because I thought that was a cool number to discover this last week.
It is. It's a good number, and it's interesting that California is almost half of the EV market.
Of course it is.
So uh, if you want to see the future, look to California, look to New York, look to New Jersey. Those states are all banning the sale of ICE engines in the 2030s, right? So the bans are coming, but they won't need them really because the economics of EVs will just be so compelling that consumers are like, "Yep, I want it." Cheaper, goes further. You could go a million miles, right? Today an ICE engine car might go 250, 300,000 miles. They're going to be million-mile cars, and they just need
So
to get more affordable.
I filled up my car the other day at the charger,
Yeah,
and I ran the numbers, and it was equivalent to $1.27 a gallon
yeah,
for my car class, which is 30
right.
to 33 gallons per mile for a small crossover.
Yeah,
And gas is still over $4, and I'm at a buck 27. And I'm like, doo, 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 very happy. But of course, for me, it was free because I still am in my 2 year free window of free electricity for my new car. So, all right, Tim, is that all I got you? I hear
free
you have some.
electricity for on a certain network, or what's the deal? Who's paying for the juice?
Yes, sir. So, when you buy a new Hyundai Ioniq 5, you get 2 years of free electricity on the Electrify America
Mm.
not supercharger, but supercharger network. This
Yeah,
yesterday I charged at 255 kW. That's faster than I'd ever charged on a Tesla charger. I never found a 250 charger that got me to the peak number. I've even gotten above 255 at this one in Providence, Rhode Island, next to the Wendy's. I go get my little chocolate slushy thing, and then just watch my car charge at like 300 kW because it's a 350 unit. and it's just cool to watch. It's like makes
Yeah.
the power station just light up.
All right. Well, we have to wrap up the show. I want to talk
Yep.
about the robot story next week. So let's keep
Yes.
that on the docket for next week. Bill Gates
Robot.
led fund backs robots to automate solar panel installation. But unfortunately, I have to run to a meeting. So we're going to wrap this up. Um, Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a rating and review on Apple and Spotify. And how can our listeners find you, John?
Commercialsolarguy.com. That's my home base. I got a contact us page. We got to update our website. Got to do some cleaning. But Commercial Solar Guy or LinkedIn. I'm on there. I'm on Twitter. Solar in Mass on Twitter. But just type in my name, John Fitzgerald
I
Weaver.
think
I'm
you're
the
on
only
Twitter
one.
as much as Elon Musk is on Twitter.
I'm much cooler than he is. He's weirdo. I don't have a rocket ship though, so I guess he's got some. He's got some.
Yeah, I don't know if you're cooler than Elon, but I like you more than Elon. Let's put
There
it
we
that
go.
way.
I'll take it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you next week at the appointed hour, which is 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern, or 9 a.m. Pacific. Take care, John.
Yep.